Welcome everyone. This is our webinar series on Office 365 products, and today we're going to explore the Microsoft Flow. But before we get started, let me introduce myself. My name is Kwa. I'm the co-founder at NIFTIT. We mainly do Office 365 and SharePoint development. We're a consulting agency based in New York, and we have development hub in Vietnam and Hong Kong. We are pretty involved with the SharePoint Office 365 community, and we co-organize events, some in Brooklyn, some in Hong Kong. We do like SharePoint Saturdays and whatnot. If you have any questions at the end of the demo, you will find my contact information right here, just in case there's a point that needs to be made clear or you want to reach out to me directly. Feel free to use those contact information right here. And just about the team that we're working with right now, we have about 35 people working across 3 to 4 offices, and we have mainly our clients located in North America, but some in Southeast Asia, working with Microsoft Office 365 and SharePoint technology. All right, so the main topic for today, Microsoft Flow. I'm going to do a quick introduction on the product itself, what are templates, what are the services available, and the pricing related to the product itself. And then after that, we're going to review the features, mainly the connectors. And I'm going to dive really quickly on the notion of environment, because that might interest some of you guys. And then at the end of the session, which is going to be like 15 minutes, we're going to do actually quite a bit of demo for today. We're going to build 3 custom flows, one related to like translation of emails, another one related to like SharePoint document libraries and notifications, and one that will enable GitHubs and Teams with the new Forms product from Microsoft Office 365. So the main audience for this presentation are going to be like power user, analysts, and I think IT people or technologists in general will appreciate the session as they can find some tricks that will help them with their productivity. All right, so Microsoft Flow was introduced as a standalone, but it's also part of the Microsoft Office 365. It's a product that helps basically building workflows and that will connect different apps, different services together in order to get synchronization in regards to data and notification. What you're going to see is that you can turn on repetitive tasks very quickly using workflows and flows technology. You're going to have access to like a bunch of templates that will predefine and help you build those flows. You can add condition. You can use data that is stored currently on your on-premises environment using the gateway to collect the data and extract it from your on-premises environment. And everything is done so that you can work securely and share the information and share the flow with whoever is permitted. In terms of the templates, like Microsoft Flow have predefined templates that are available to us. There's quite a bit of them. You'll see that during the demo. But basically, the idea is that if you don't feel like creating your own custom flow, there's probably one that already answers your need. They are published by Microsoft or like third-party people. And you're going to see a vast array of what those templates can do. So it goes from anything from approval all the way to like productivity, notification, social media. You can connect to quite a bit of services in that front so that it will help you out with the initiation on the Microsoft Flow platform. In terms of the services that Microsoft Flow is allowing you to connect to, the list is quite extensive. There's a lot of the products out there that will come with the free version or the Office 365 version of the product. Some of them require a premium, so you'll need to pay a bit more to get access to those. But a majority of the services allowed and provided are actually free of usage, and they will allow you to do anything from Microsoft products, so like SharePoint and OneDrive, all the way to like third-party application like Basecamp. You're going to see a lot of connection to Azure services too, things like Instagram and social medias that are available as services. And each one of those services will basically live within your flow. So you get to choose which one you want to connect to. And as long as you have a proper account, you'll be able to set the connection. In terms of the pricing on Microsoft Flow, there's three tiers. There's the free version, so all you'll need to get access to that is a Microsoft Enable account. You have the Microsoft Flow for Office 365, so as long as you are an Office 365 user, within one of those plans, like the Business Essential, Business Premium, E1 to E5 plans, you will have access to Microsoft Flow for free. And then after that, they have two other premium tier called Flow Plan 1 and Flow Plan 2. And the main difference between all those plans are going to be the increments in terms of checks. So if you have the Microsoft Flow for Office 365, the runs on your Flow will do a check every 5 minutes, whereas the Flow Plan 2 will be a 1 minute increment. And the number of runs that you can do per month for each of your instance, it's limited to 2,000 runs per month per user for the Office 365 version that comes for free if you are an Office 365 user, and it go up to 15,000 runs per month per user for the Plan 2. So one interesting thing to note is the fact that the runs are aggregated in terms of the number of users. So if you have 10 users in your organization and you are on Office 365, what you'll get is basically 2,000 times 10, 20,000 runs per month. That means that if one of your users actually use all of them or half of them, that will count against the aggregation of your runs. What you'll notice too is that if you are running to the limit of the runs that are available on your subscription, you'll be able to purchase extra runs from the Microsoft Flow platform. Okay, so we're going to dive into the features and what we can do with Microsoft Flow. So there's the notion of connectors. Basically, each services that you have will allow you to connect to it. So once you have created that connection, it's usually your username and password, you'll be able to retrieve two type of component, or you're going to be able to do triggers on it, and it's basically like to run on something occurring during that flow, or you're going to be able to do an action. So it's basically something that you direct the flow or the user to do on your behalf. One interesting things to note out in terms of Flow's environment is that it provides you the ability to create isolation boundaries between your flows. So that is typically needed if you have like different type of roles within an organization and you want some of the flows to run only for a certain type of people, or if you have like segregated offices and regionality that applies, and then you need to have like a separate environment for each one of those offices or regional offices. So that's how you would use an environment. So environments are only available on the highest tier of the Office 365 plan. So you need like one of those higher plan, and there's a limit in terms of the number of environments that you can run. But if you were to need that, what you need to consider is the fact that the migration of flows are not possible between environments. So if you're creating an environment for Europe, you have all of your European user utilizing that specific environment and provided access to that environment, and you create a flow assigned to that specific environment, you won't be able to migrate it to your second environment. You will have to actually recreate it at this point. And one specific thing that you need to be aware of is that the enterprise gateway, it's the gateway that allows you to retrieve data on premises. It's only available on the default environment. So basically, it's the only environment that will allow you to do data connection gateways to your on-premises environment. So yeah, just a few notes about the environment on Flow. It's good to note, but if you're on the Office 365 plan, most likely you will be provided just that single environment, and you will have to pay extra for further environment. All right, so um, what we're going to do now is jump into the demo. So I'm going to do uh, 3 flows, but before that, I'm going to do a quick introduction on the space or the platform that is provided when you connect to the flow. So I'm just going to go back to my desktop right here and open up a new window. And what I'm going to do is access it from flow.microsoft.com. So I'm already authenticated, so it will do that. If you're not authenticated, what it will request is or your Microsoft account or your Office 365 account, and you will land right here into the homepage, which provides you some updates on what they're doing and some guiding documentation and whatnot. What is interesting is the left navigation right here. You're going to have access to all your flow, the ones that you have created right here. So I'm going to turn off some of those actually as we're speaking. And you're going to see all the approvals that are requested when you create a flow. So you have the ability to request an approval when creating a flow, and basically to see all the receive or the send request for approval. What you're going to see is that it will appear right here. What you're going to notice too is the templates available. So right here are all the default templates, and you can filter them by categories. And basically those are created by the community or by Microsoft itself, and you can just quickly click on one, review it, and edit it to fit your needs and enable it. So let's say that you want to use, for example, let's see one that is interesting. Quickly email a note to yourself. Okay, so if you wanted to use this one, for example, it will give you the name of the services that it's going to use. So right here, it's going to use the flow button for mobile and the mail client. And I'm going to go ahead and create that flow. And once it's done, it's going to go into the detail for that specific flow. It already turned it on by default. And from this screen, you're going to be able to see the services and the description of that specific flow, who's the owner, who are the people that can run this specific flow, the connection to the services, and the run history. So as you run or as things are running into a specific flow, you will see the whole history, whether it succeeded or failed during the process. And then you can go ahead and edit this flow. Click on the ellipsis right here to review some of the settings or delete a specific step. Click on the entire box if you want to provide more information about it. And then after that, update the flow and close. So that's how you would utilize a template from the template library of Flow. You get the connector too. So the connectors are basically the list of all the services that are available on Flow, and the list keeps increasing quite frequently. I see a lot of new things added every time I jump back on this. But what you can review is also whether you're going to need the premium account in order to run those services or not. So again, lots of them are free, but if you want to access some of the Salesforce, for example, right here, or Capture CRM, you're going to have the premium account. And I can click on one of those so that you can see what it looks like once you select the service. All right. And before we go ahead and start the creation of our first flow, note that if there's any error happening during one of the flow, you'll get a notification right here on the right hand side. It gives you also quick access to the data gateway if you need to connect to a SQL database, for example, that is hosted on your environment, and the quick link for the Flow for mobile application. So I think it's available on iOS and Android. All your settings right here. So if you're an administrator, you actually want to be able to connect to that because it's going to give you access to all the data prevention and loss policies that you can apply to your flows. I'm actually going to click on that so we can review it quickly. If you're just a regular end user, you don't really need to care about this. Um, that is only available for Office 365 administrator right here. But it's going to give you access to some of the feature to secure and set environments with your basically Office 365 user group, right? So right here you can see that you can select, review, and assign licenses. You can add data policies, and you can do further integration with data, especially if you have like a data connection gateway enabled on your environment. All right, let's go ahead and create our first flow. So what I'm going to do is click on my flow right here, and we're going to create the flow from a blank template. It's going to ask me if I want to start with one of the typical trigger, but I'm actually going to start from blank. So I'm just going to click on that box right below. And so the first things that we're going to do is basically work with SharePoint and have every time that, let's say, a proposal is uploaded to my SharePoint document library, I want to be able to create a new task on my task management system and say, hey, you know what, like someone needs to take a look at this proposal or someone needs to act on that specific proposal. So to start, we probably need a SharePoint environment. So I already have one set up. It's available right here. I'm going to access it and just show you the document library that we're going to leverage. So I'm going to go to the site content, and we have created this proposal document library. It's a simple document library right here where I can upload documents. And for the task management system, what I'm going to use is Basecamp. There's other one, there's Teamwork and Jira. I see that they have Asana too. So you can select the one that you're using within your organization, but in our case, we're going to use Basecamp. The first thing that we're going to do is select a trigger for the SharePoint. So I'm going to type SharePoint right here to filter down the connector. So I'm going to click on SharePoint. And as you can see, we have access to two components, the triggers right here, and there's 7 of them, and the actions right here. So for us, we want to have the flow working when there's actually a trigger, when there's an event, right? So the one that we're going to select is when a file is created or modified in a folder. So I'm just going to click on this one. It's going to import the template and ask me to fill out some of the required field. So the first thing that it's asking me is the site address. So right here, I need to provide that, and it already recognized my value right here, which is the site squad that I've created in the previous screen. And basically, it's going to ask me the folder ID or the document library name. So I'm just going to click on the little folder right here. It's going to extend and show me all the document libraries and list. And I'm going to select the one for proposal. Right. We can expand the advanced option, but right here in this particular option, I'm just going to leave it as default. And what I'm going to do next is basically add another action and select my task management system. So in this case, Basecamp. And we're going to select the connector Basecamp 2, which is the version that we're currently using. So it filters the trigger and action. And what I want to do is that every time that the file is created or uploaded to my proposal document library, I'm going to create a to-do. And it's going to ask me my account ID and the project ID, all of that information that I need to fill out. So it's already knowing that, if I click on the drop down right here, you're going to see that it's already knowing which account to connect because I already have the connection set up, right? But if not, if it wasn't the case, what you will have to do right here is basically a prompt is going to come up to the screen asking you to approve Microsoft Flow as the application accessing Basecamp, and then after that, click OK, and then you'll be set to go. So here, I'm just going to select the different things. The project right here is our marketing and business development. I'm going to select the business development list right here, and the content right here, we're going to have access to a very interesting feature. It's called the dynamic content. It's basically all the bits and pieces of content that is dynamically generated within your flow, and the expression. Basically, it's utility function from the flow environment that allows you to do things like bringing dates and playing with logic and bringing up a collection of objects. So a little bit more of a development mindset here, but for the dynamic content, which is what we want to do right here, we're just going to use something very simple. We want the content to be equal to the file name right here, and we're going to say, well, document was uploaded here, and it's asking me to set a due date for this particular item. So what I'm going to do is actually use our expression. And I'm going to say, well, you know what, like if there's an item that needs to be created on the proposal library and it creates a task, I want it to be like 7 days from today's date. So we're going to add days right here. And it's going to give me a little bit of information about this function right here. It needs a timestamp, the number of days added, which is an integer field, and the format in which to display the information. So what I'm going to do is, for the first part of the equation, what I'm going to do is bring the today's date. So I'm going to do UTC now, which is another function. I'm going to add 7 days to make it a week. And the format in which I want to retrieve it is going to be like month, day, day, and year. And click on OK. All right. So you can read, there's quite a bit of expressions that are available to you. They do very basic things, but you can read what they're doing from here. I also have a link in my slide, so you can review that on your own time. All right, so we have that flow created. I'm going to go ahead and create that flow. And once it's done, I'm going to click on done just to exit the flow. Right here. All right, so you can see that you have the description right here, you have the connections, and there's no run right now because nothing has been uploaded to our proposal library. So what I'm going to do is click on the upload library right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and select this file, for example. Right. So the document has been uploaded to SharePoint. What we want to see now from the flow is the activity. So I'm going to click here on CO and try to refresh that. So remember that because we're using the Office 365 version for Flow, the checks are actually going to happen every 5 minutes. So we may have to wait a little bit for this to happen. In the meantime, just to show that it's going to be working, hopefully, is that I'm going to open the Basecamp account and the specific to-do list that is assigned to that. And we should see the item if everything worked out fine. So I'm just going to go and business development right here. And so we may have to wait a little bit. And if if it's done, let me see. Yeah, it's uploaded here. It will show us the result of that. So I'm just going to wait a little bit, and hopefully this is going to show up. So obviously, if we're on a higher tier, the check will happen a lot faster or a lot more frequently, and this will be done already, but you just have to be patient using free things. All right, so this is in the background, it's still running. I'm pretty sure it will hit it. What I'm going to do in the meantime is prepare for the second flow that we want to create. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that in a new tab. And again, we're going to create something from blank. So in this particular flow, we're going to use some of the core services that are provided by Microsoft. They have created quite a bit of core API, I believe, that enrich the experience on the flow. So cognitive services, for example. So I think there's a face detection right here, API. So if you click on that one, right here, you're going to see all the action. It's going to be able to detect faces and find the person from face, which is kind of cool. You're going to be able to use the services like translation services. And this is the one that we're going to use, actually, the Microsoft Translator right here. So yeah, those services are quite neat, I believe, and could enrich greatly the experience. You can do like content conversion. That's another one that is provided to you from the flow. And we're going to stop on that specific flow. So let's go ahead and set up a scenario. So what we want to do is when an email gets sent to my mailbox, what I want to do is detect the language and translate it to the proper language, from the proper language to English, right? And then send that back to my Gmail account so that way we don't create an infinite loop. So what I'm going to do is search for Outlook first. That's the first step. We're going to need to use one of its triggers. So I'm going to use the 365 Outlook. And the main things that I want to trigger is when a new email arrives. You can see that from the mail client, I can choose the folder. Per default, it goes to my inbox. And right here, I'm going to select the advanced options. And I'm going to put a filter. So like right here, it will trigger on every emails that hit my mailbox. But what I want to do just for the sake of the demo is just trigger it when it comes from me. Right? I'm the initiator of the flow. What I'm going to do next is add an action. And I want to be able to detect the language from the email. So I'm going to do detect right here, and I'm going to use the Microsoft Translator. So I'm going to detect a language, and right here, using our dynamic content, it's going to say, well, you know what, we need to detect what. So I want to detect from the subject line of the email. I'm going to add another action in which we are going to basically set a condition. Oh, sorry. So I actually want to cancel that. I actually want to add a condition. And if the language code that was detected is equal, so I need to close that one here. Expression is equal to French, then I'm going to do something. So I'm going to go ahead and add an action on the yes branch right here. And I'm going to do the translation. So translate. Translate text right here. And what we want to translate in this case is the body of the email. So I'm going to set that. And let's say that we receive some text in French in the body and we want to convert that into English. So I'm just going to select that right here. And if everything is translated properly, what we want to do is actually email that back to me so that I can have the proper uh, translation. And I'm going to send an email to my Gmail account, for example. I'm just doing that so that I don't create a loop that goes all the time. And the subject is going to be the subject name in the language name, and I'm going to use right here the translated text. Here. All right, cool. There's advanced option too, so it's asking me if I want to CC anyone, BCC anyone, or the importance. In this case, is the HTML, it is the email and HTML content, so I'm going to say yes right here. And that's good for our yes branch. What I'm going to do now is, what if it's not French? In that case, I'm going to do a simple thing. I'm just going to email. I'm going to select the trigger. Oops, I selected the wrong one. Delete. Add an action. Email. And I'm going to send an email. Same thing. I'm just going to send an email to the same person right here. But here I'm going to say it's not French. Right here. So we have the email, the Microsoft Translator connector, and we're going to create the flow and see and do some testing around it just to see how it's running out. While it's doing that, I'm going to go back to the first flow and see all right here, and you can see like it succeeded. All right, cool. So the first flow and the first test that we run out did succeed, but it was only started 3 minutes ago. So if I just had waited, it would have been quite a bit of time. So you can review the detail of the run by clicking on it. And right here, you can see the date in which it ran. So again, that one, to verify that it ran properly, we need to go to our Basecamp to do. And right here, you can see that it created the proposal right here. It did not put the correct date for some reason. Maybe because I need to do day month instead of month day. But you can notice that that specific workflow worked out. Going back to our second flow, we're going to try to run that real quick. So I'm going to bring up my Outlook right here. And I'm going to go ahead and create an email that I'm going to send to myself. And I'm going to say something in French. And all right, so I'm going to send that to myself. Again, here's the trigger, is that we need to receive the email. And then after that, wait for the Microsoft Flow to run the check on that specific flow before we can see it in the run history. So it might take a little bit of time too here. What I'm going to do in that case, same thing, is that I'm going to go ahead and prepare our third example, which will use Microsoft Forms, GitHubs, and Teams. By now, you should get a very clear idea of like what capabilities and what you're able to do on Microsoft Flow. So I'm going to start another blank canvas right here. And in this specific scenario, what we're going to do is allow people to submit a request on a Microsoft Forms that I'm going to create. And from there, what we're going to do is log in an issue to GitHub submit a little message on Microsoft Teams. Very simple. So the first step is going to be the forms, right? So I need to go and open Microsoft Forms. So if I go to my Office 365, oops, here, I'm going to click on the app launcher and I'm going to open Forms. So where is it? Flow Forms right here. Right, I'm going to create a new form, and this is going to be an issue tracking form, and very demo for flow. Very simple. I'm going to add just a single question that is going to be like, describe your issue. It's going to be a long text. Why not? Let's make it required. I'm going to go ahead and share it. So now we have a form that we can enter information. All right. So now what I'm going to do is go back to my empty new blank flow, and I'm going to use that. So I'm going to select Forms and select Microsoft Forms. And the only trigger is when a new response is submitted. So it's perfect. We're going to use this one. We're going to select the issue tracking form right here. I'm going to add an action, and I need to read the information coming from that response. So there is an action from Microsoft Forms. So I'm just going to select the connector again. But in this case, I'm going to select the action and get response detail. So the form ID is going to be the issue tracking form. And what we're going to set in the dynamic content is the response ID. So the cool thing to notice is that because it's going to happen on every single new response that is created, Microsoft Flow was smart enough to actually set it up in a loop or apply to each, so that way we have this occurring every single time that a new response is created or event. And what I want to do after this is actually connect with GitHub right here. So same thing, I'm going to create an issue. What you need to notice is that I already have a connection to that. If you wanted to add a connection or you don't have a connection already existing, basically you see that specific screen is adding me twice because I'm already connected, but it will give you a pop-up and you just need to fill it out and give the proper information. So right here, the repo, it's my username, and the repo name. So let me go to my GitHub actually, and I'm going to go to repo, create new, and I'm going to give it a name. So demo 123. Create the repo. All right, cool. So we have our repo. What we're going to do is give it a repo name, demo 123. The summary of the issue is basically the maybe an ID. So we're going to do like issue number response ID. And the body is going to be the description of the issue right here. And I'm going to do from, we're going to add the responder email on, and we're going to add the submission time right here. Cool. And the next step, just to make sure that everyone know about this specific issue for a product that we're working on, for example, I'm going to add a connection to the Microsoft Teams platform, and I'm going to post a message. I'm going to select the team, so NIFTIT product. I'm going to select the channel, so I'm going to use the general channel, and I'm going to put the message. So the message is actually, HTML enabled, so you can do something like this: new uh, issue. Please review at. I'm going to add a link right here using HTML. And then the address of this is going to be the issue address with the ID. So plaque, and I'm going to add the ID right here. All right, same thing. I'm going to go ahead and create this flow. It's going to leverage Forms, GitHub, and Teams. So we're going to review that in a second too. So done. Let's go ahead and try this one actually. So I'm going to go back to my issue tracking form, and I'm going to say, let's review this ticket. I'm going to submit it. Once it's submitted, what I should notice on my GitHub is that it should have created one issue with the issue and the ID of the issue. And if I click on that, it will give me the detail of it with the name and the submission date. And the last step of this one is actually on my teams under the products general. What you'll see is, hey, please review this issue right here. If I click on that, it brings me back to the same thing. All right, so before we go, I'm just going to review the second flow, the one that we created with the translation, and it did succeed 4 minutes ago, so not that long ago. To demo that, remember we sent a message in French, and if it was properly working, it should have translated the email. So what I'm going to do is, the meeting right here. Oops, let's have this one. It's not French. Okay, so it didn't detect the French language from the branch. And if it did though, what you should see is a message of translating the content into English. So hopefully that was helpful. We have other demonstration related to other Office 365 products if you're interested. One will be about SharePoint, and another one will be about Power BI. So feel free to let us know your feedback. Again, there was a mishappening on the session from yesterday, so sorry about that. If you have any questions, feel free to connect with me at quad@niftit.com, and the slides will be available on our site or via email, so just feel free to request them. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good one.